Good morning and welcome to Puerto Viejo here in Costa Rica. My final stop in this country before heading to Panama, which will be my first new country in almost 2 years. So I'm really excited about that. Looking forward to getting to Panama and checking out some new places there. I'm going to be there for about 2 weeks or so. I have 3 stops planned to get to Panama City. But in the meantime, we'll talk about my experience so far here on the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica. As you saw already, I was up in Tortuguero, where I spent a few days. I'll talk about how I got down to here because it wasn't as simple as it might look on a map, and talk about my plans going forward. So I just came down here to one of the many beaches here in Puerto Viejo, and just wanted to kind of talk about my adventures here so far on the Atlantic or Caribbean coast, if you will, in Costa Rica. So as you saw from Tortuguero, I had a really nice time there. It was very relaxing. It was a beautiful spot, you know, and I had a really nice place to stay there for a few nights. Ended up, as I suspected, I ended up having a roommate for the final night, but that was fine, quiet, and I was out fairly early the next day anyway. So to get here from Tortuguero was a bit more than I think most people would realize or think if you look at the map. If you look at the map, it looks like it's just kind of straight down the coast from Tortuguero to here. You know, it's only a few hundred kilometers, so you think, it can't be that bad or difficult. It ends up taking you 1 boat and 4 buses to get from Tortuguero to here in Puerto Viejo on the same day. Everything went very smoothly, but I thought I would kind of mention the process. I think those are 2 locations that are quite popular here in Costa Rica, and I think a lot of people just, you know, take a shuttle for $40 or $50 US that takes you from point A to point B, and you don't even think about the rest of it. But if you're traveling on a budget, or you like a little bit more adventure in your travels, there is a local bus option that gets you there the whole way. So the first step from Tortuguero is, like everybody else, you hop onto one of the skinny water taxi boats at the waterfront in Tortuguero. It costs 4,000 colons, which is the standard price that everybody pays, as far as I can tell, locals and tourists. That's about a 45-minute to an hour ride down the river, which takes you to La Pavona. The river is interesting. I was surprised on the way back, especially how shallow it was. There were some spots where the boat had to go very, very slowly and navigate some very shallow spots there. We almost got hung up a couple times with the motor hitting the bottom. So there couldn't have been more than, you know, a half to 3/4 of a meter of water in the river. And but the guy who was driving the boat definitely knew every inch of it, because he was able to get through it no problem in the end. And yeah, we got back to La Pavona. So that boat left at 9 a.m. We pulled into La Pavona at about 10 o'clock. I knew that there were local buses that take you from La Pavona up to Carriari, because that's the bus that I took there in the first place. Anyway, I was traveling on a Sunday. So some people had said that there was you know, fewer buses on Sunday, or some people had said, there's no buses on Sundays at all. So I figured, well, worst case scenario, I will hitchhike back out to Carriari. There was lots of tourists with rental cars and those types of things. And so I figured that what I would do is, you know, if worst case scenario, I'll just hitchhike. There were shuttles also in La Pavona, but they wanted like $25 US. Fortunately, when I got to La Pavona, there was a local bus sitting there waiting to leave, going to Carriari, which was fantastic in my case. It was like just perfect timing, because I showed up at 10 and that bus left at about 5 after 10. So I suspect they were just waiting for maybe the public boat to arrive, which is the one I was on before they took off. So the bus to Cagliari was 1,200 colones, which is a bit cheaper than the bus that I took to get there in the first place. That was 1,500 when I was going to Tortuguero. So that sort of confirms that if you do go to that second bus station in Cagliari and take the bus from there, you save about 300 colones, or about $1 or so, but you have to walk 10 or so minutes up the road, and so it's up to you to decide whether it's worth it or not. Coming back, however, you have to get off at that station, and then from there you want to transfer to your second bus of the day. So once you get to Cagliari, you pick up a ticket there at the ticket window for Guapiles, which is the second bus stop you need to get to. That was 565 colones for that ride. It's only about half an hour, maybe, something like that. It wasn't super long, but it's important you get to the Guapiles because that is where you catch the bus to Limon, which takes you back out to the coast. So getting to Guapiles was no problem. The buses left every 20 or 30 minutes, quite frequently. I get to Limon, and it was about, at that point, I would say about 12:25. And I walk up to the ticket window, ask the guy about tickets to Limon, and he's like, yeah, it's leaving in like 3 minutes. So sure enough, I got the ticket to Limon. The ticket for that stretch was 3,325 colones, which is about, I don't know, $7 or so. That is a 2.5 or between 2 and 2.5 hour bus ride to Limon. It's the longest stretch of the day for sure. It was a fairly comfortable, older style sort of Greyhound bus, public bus, but no air conditioning, but the windows were all open, so it was nice and cool inside the whole time. And it was fine. There's no problems with that one at all. So I finally get to Limon, which is my third bus stop of the day. And we arrived there, I would say, around 3 o'clock or so. That is not the bus station, however. You have to get the bus to here in Puerto Viejo. You have to walk about 2 blocks, kind of around the baseball field there. And I mean, this will all be on the map, so you'll see it there too. But there's another bus company called MEPE, M-E-P-E, which controls most of the bus routes sort of south of Limon down this stretch of Costa Rica. So once you get over to the MEPE bus station, you pick up your ticket there to Puerto Viejo. It left at 3 p.m., so only about 15 or 20 minutes wait. It was 21.85 colones, which works out to about $5 or $6. And that took about an hour to an hour and a half or so. So that was it. It ended up being about an 8-hour travel day to go from Tortuguero down here to Puerto Viejo on the public buses. But everything went very smoothly. I mean, I have no complaints. Even the connection times were all really good. The longest I had to wait was like 20 minutes, 25 minutes tops for any of the buses. So, I mean, everything, went really smoothly that day. In the end, I got to town here in Puerto Viejo about 4:30 or so, and then finally get checked into where I'm staying there about 5 o'clock. So it worked out pretty much what I expected for the day, and it was a pretty smooth experience overall. This Caribbean coast area here in Costa Rica is very popular. It is very touristy. It doesn't feel like many other places that I've been in Costa Rica. It's very humid, it's very hot here, I suspect all year round. And as you can see here from the beach, very popular with tourists. We've actually got a half-sunken boat here in the water. It's probably a natural reef in some ways also, but some pretty big surf here. They caution people about swimming here because some of the waves out farther break quite strongly. Be great for surfing, but there is, I think, a pretty strong current here at the same time. So my thoughts on Costa Rica as a whole. I have to say first that obviously my trip here was broken up into 2 very distinct sections. The first half, when I went to Santa Teresa, Monteverde, and La Fortuna back in the fall. And now this half here where I went to, well, really just a stopover, I guess, in San Jose, and then onward to Tortuguero and here in Puerto Viejo. I think my overall impressions on Costa Rica are similar to how I felt when I was here back in 2012. I was here in 2012 for work. I was only here for a couple of weeks at the time. But my impressions then and my impressions now are still quite similar. So to me, Costa Rica is a very well-oiled machine. It is a tourist hub for a reason. It has all the amenities anyone could want at any price range. You know, there's lots of opportunities here for mountains, jungles, beaches. The list goes on and on. But I do feel at the same time that you are just another tourist here. Because it's so busy and so popular, what's missing to me is the local feel, I guess is a good way to put it. You know, when I have traveled through other countries in the region, lesser visited perhaps, places like Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, they have really kind of shown to me a local personality that I have yet to find here in Costa Rica. I don't even know if that makes sense to other people, but to me it's the one thing that keeps me from really sinking my teeth into Costa Rica and being able to enjoy it at the level that I have of other places. I think that, you know, I think back to other countries in the region and everybody, and I mean everybody, says hello in Nicaragua, in El Salvador, in Honduras, in Guatemala even. Here in Costa Rica, it just feels like it's all business, all the time. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're running that business, but for me, it loses some of that personal feel that other places have had. Which is a shame because, I mean, this country is beautiful. And, you know, I think back to the people that I met when I was in, you know, Monteverde, for example, and had a wonderful time there, loved the location, you know, getting to experience the cloud forest and the nature preserve that's there, and all of those things was incredible. It's some of the best times I've had on my trip. But as a whole, it just not all, but most of the rest of it just feels like you're just another tourist, you're just another dollar, and you know, you'll be moving on and no one will remember. So I don't know what that says about me necessarily, or about Costa Rica in general, but that's kind of how I'm at. And it probably goes quite different from what a lot of other people think and say about Costa Rica. You know, it's easy to come here if you've got loads of money and you want to go somewhere that's tropical but still has all the conveniences of back home. This is 100% the place for you. Costa Rica will give you everything that you need and then some, and you'll have those memories for the rest of your life. And I'm glad that, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that I've been able to come through here and check it out, and to finish the country off and to see both sides of it, both in Santa Teresa on the Pacific coast, you know, here on the Caribbean coast, and then also all the parts in between. I'm very glad that I got to see it all. You know, I didn't think San Jose, there wasn't a whole lot going on there. I've heard other people say it's not the colonial capital that other countries have, and they're correct. You know, I went to San Jose now twice, and I didn't film 5 minutes either time that I was there. So I guess what I'm trying to say in the end of it all is, don't feel like you have to just go to a place or a country just because everyone else has said, oh, it's amazing and you should go there. My opinion has about as much weight and value, I suppose, as anybody else's. You know, everyone's opinions are different. Everyone's different opinions are of equal value. You know, some people will say Costa Rica is their number one. And I personally know people who have traveled through this entire region and would put Costa Rica at number 1 or 2 on their lists. But for someone like me who has enjoyed the more adventurous, sort of rough around the edges type places, you know, I've certainly enjoyed other places, I think, more. But again, that's just a personal opinion, you know, and that's really what it is. But I mean, look at this. Like, you stand here, I'm here on this beach, you know, beautiful all the way around here, out to the Atlantic Ocean. You know, there's all kinds, as you saw there, probably in the background, there are literally hundreds of coffee shops and restaurants and souvenir stands and everything you would need here or could ever want. So it's a mixed bag, I guess, for me. You know, again, like I said, Monteverde, probably a top 10 place of anywhere that I've been. But as a country as a whole, certainly not in the top 1 or 2. Which, at least when I finish Panama, or at least my part of Panama that I'm visiting, I'll be making a list of the 7 Central American countries and rank them all from my favorite to least favorite. So you'll have to keep an eye out for that. Just picked up a little beef patty from this Reposteria Morian here, just sort of on the main drag as I'm walking around the town. And let's give it a try. Those patties are really good. They're nice and stuffed full of nice spicy Jamaican kind of flavors. And they were 1,000 colones each, which was really good. That's only like $2 or so. I'm just going for a walk kind of up around the block here where it's away from the hubbub on the main drag. It's amazing how you only have to go about 20 meters and you're already away from all the noise and chaos. It's really cool street art here, just as I'm walking by. One of the problems with this hat is that it's always puts me in the shade. So no matter how I try and film, you know, trying to brighten my face up, and all that happens is it just ends up being in shade the whole time. But it's either that or burn my head with the sun. So there's my 2 choices. So my plans going forward from here. Tomorrow I am heading on a bus to the border with Panama and Sixtola, which is the very busy, very popular transit point between the 2 countries for tourists. And from there I'm heading to Bocas del Toro Island for a few nights. Very famous, very popular spot again, but should be a bit of a different vibe, I think. The impression that I get from Panama is that it is less intense, I guess is the word, than Costa Rica. Less all about just doing business, and I'm looking forward to checking it out. I haven't been to Panama before. It'll be the first time that I've been there, which will finally complete the Central American trek that I started so many months ago. When I crossed over from Mexico to Belize, it was very early January of 2025. It'll be 15 months here in Central America, across these, so far, 6 countries, soon to be 7th. So in Panama, I have 3 stops planned. After Panama City, I have made a couple of decisions. One was a no-brainer. My dad's, and this isn't a spoiler or won't be a surprise to him at this point, because by the time this video comes out, I will already be there. My dad's 80th birthday is happening, and I am flying home to surprise him for it. I unfortunately can't get home the day of his birthday because Air Canada, which is the only airline that flies into the city where I'm going, are terrible, for lack of a better word. I know that March break week in Canada is one of the busiest travel days of the year, travel weeks of the year, but that's no reason for them to jack up flight costs about 400%, especially when the following week is back down to its regular prices again. So I'm flying home to see my dad for his birthday. We have this whole surprise planned where I'm going to hide out at my brother's when I get home. They're going to tell him, oh, a package arrived late for your birthday in at my brother's place. We have to go pick it up. They're going to bring him in. I'm going to be there waiting. It's going to be awesome. The last time I flew home and surprised him was a couple years ago now. And yeah, he was really excited to see me, and I'm really excited to see them this time as well. You know, it's a big birthday for him, and it'll be nice to get home and do that. Before I fly directly home for his birthday, I'm meeting up with my brother and his family. We're going to go to Mexico and enjoy their March break together, and then I will fly home after that. So it'll be kind of a nice trip. You know, the jokes write themselves and go, oh, Ian's going back to Mexico again. Well, yes, but just for a week this time. The other big decision I've made is that I am not going any further south than Panama City.